Andrea's got a question from Connor. Can you give a short history lesson on what were the Papal States? How were they formed, and what happened to them? Yeah, sure. I have to just like think through all of this real quick. Okay, yeah. So, really, the Papal States weren't formed until the collapse of the Roman Empire, right? So, just to remind everybody, Roman Empire united the Western world. It was this time of peace, right? The Pax Romana is a very famous historical thing that happened, and around the year 400, a little bit before that, maybe around in the 4th century, things started to decay. Um, the borders were beginning to falter. Really, the maintenance of the entire Roman Empire was going downhill. The roads weren't maintained the same. The military was having a harder time really recruiting and maintaining the kind of discipline and strength that it had in the past. And the rulers were just becoming less impressive human beings. Then, kind of from the 4th century into the 7th, there was just this long series of peoples that we refer to very generally as the barbarians that would come in. But it was, the Goths, Visigoths, the Vandals, like all these different peoples started coming in to the Roman Empire from all sorts of different angles. You also had the Muslims kind of coming across northern Africa and into modern day Spain, the Iberian Peninsula, and basically the Roman Empire collapsed. Now, these people that came in, typically they were very good warriors, but they weren't the best of statesmen. They weren't the best of governors. So they invaded, and all of the things that the Roman Empire used to do, like have a sanitary system, keep roads safe, maintain roads, provide for commerce and transportation. It was developed to this point where sometimes certain crops were grown on these huge latifundie, which are these like big plantation type things. I think is the closest English word. And then they would be carried into these cities, which had grown to a pretty significant size for that time. And so if the roads decayed, you couldn't get that food into the cities. And then if the roads weren't safe, even if the roads were in good shape, you weren't going to get the food into the city, or at least the people who had grown the food weren't going to be the ones that were going to be able to sell it, because it was going to be stolen halfway there and then sold once it actually got into the city. And so, basically the entire system of the world was collapsing, and the only organization that was still unified under a single head, that had delegates spread throughout the entire Roman Empire, and not just delegates, but also educated delegates, right? The priests were always kind of the most educated, or they were among the most educated in their towns. The only organization that was like that was the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church. And so really, it was Gregory the Great that is most known for his work with this. He was the one that really developed the Papal States really as a welfare system. He said, things are bad. We need to organize all of this, make sure that we're going to make it, that people aren't starving, and we need to kind of restore society, because for the Pope, he was like, well, I'm trying to preach the gospel, but if someone is starving, they don't really care that much that God exists, right? They just don't want to see their child starve to death. And so he stepped up and really organized things to improve that. And it was a long process. It was over a lot of popes, but really Gregory the Great is the one that's most famous about that. So that was excellent, right? Essentially the church saved Europe from starvation as the organizational systems were collapsing throughout the West. really the West kind of made it through that period, and the church still had large portions of land. And so, slowly over time, certain people kind of became princes, right? Then you get into the feudal system. These different princes and feudal lords start essentially bucking the Pope, and the Papal States kind of shrink down into the medieval period to kind of just be this, through the medieval period to be this kind of strip across Italy. And it remains that way really until about, it was 1870, 1869, right around then, when you have what's referred to as the unification of Italy, where Vittorio Emanuele was the guy's name. I think he was from Milan, pretty much just like military force plowed his way through the Papal States. He imprisoned the Pope in the Vatican and confiscated all of the church's property throughout all of what is now modern day Italy. And then eventually there was a concordat that was signed between the Holy See and modern day Italy, and they kind of worked things out, and now it's not quite as tenuous. The Pope obviously isn't imprisoned in the Vatican, but that was really the end of the Papal States, aside from what is now called Vatican City, which is really the last remnant of the Papal States. So, is it right that the Pope doesn't have large pieces of property? I kind of think it frees up the Holy See to be able to focus on what he's supposed to be focusing on, right? Which is really the evangelization. However, when you look at the history, really the Papal States arose because the Pope was doing works of charity. He was trying to keep people from starving to death and trying to, protect innocent people from robbers and vandals and pillaging and things of the sort. And so it arose at a very bad time in the West, and it arose for a very good reason. But probably the Pope could have stepped back from that a little bit earlier and nothing bad would have happened. And, the situation that we're in now, it's not like we need to restore the Papal States or anything like that. The Pope, although he does have authority over all of the earth, his primary mission is a mission of evangelization. And so being able to focus on that and not worry about the running of a country is really a good thing. Great question, Connor. Yeah, because you hear a lot of different stuff about that.